There's one verse in the Gospel of Mark, Mark 2:24, that almost all the English translations out there got wrong. Let's jump into it. Mark 2:24, let's read. Kai hoi Pharisaioi elegon auto, ide tipo using to sabasin ho uk existing. The verse is very simple. It starts as usual with this kai, which is the conjunction and, very typical in Mark. Then you have the subject, which is right here, um, hoi Pharisaioi. Then you have the verb, and then you have the person to whom the Pharisees are talking to, which is, of course, Jesus. Okay. And then here it starts the direct speech. It's what the Pharisees tell Jesus. And they say, ide, which is, we're going to see the form of look, okay, form of look. And then you have the rest, which almost all the translation translate with a question mark. You see that you have this semicolon at the end of the sentence, which in Greek represent the question mark. Okay. Now, if this is understood as a question, this T becomes an interrogative pronoun. Okay, an interrogative pronoun that introduced the question that Pharisees supposedly asked Jesus. And then you have the verb right here. This is the verb of the question. And then you have these toys subazine that indicates a temporal indication. So it's the time when the disciples are doing what they're doing. And then you have these ho, which in this interpretation becomes a relative pronoun. Okay, a relative pronoun in the neuter. Okay, which we're going to see is going to get translated as that which, or simply what. Okay, what. And then you have the negation here, uk, which we know means not. And then you have the verb, which comes here. This is another verb, okay, that ends the supposed question. All right. So under this type of interpretation, we could simply translate as it follows. So kai and then you have hoi Pharisai. These are the Pharisees. Okay. There's no reason to waste time there. The Pharisees, elegon, this is the verb lego, which we met many times. It's the verb that means to say. Okay. This is you see this epsilon in front that indicates that this is an imperfect tense. An imperfect tense indicates an action that happens continuously or repeatedly. So Mark is indicating that the Pharisees were complaining with Jesus about, and continuously complaining with Jesus about what his disciples were doing, which we saw in the previous video, Mark 2:23, where the Pharisees, the disciples of Jesus, start plucking out the ears of the grains in the grain field, right? And so the Pharisees were saying, okay, we could translate it as the Pharisees said to him. So this is a personal pronoun, to him. You see, it's in the dative case. Is omega with the iota subscript, dative, masculine, singular, to him. They said to him, but more literally, they were saying to him. They were complaining to him. It was a continuous accusation. Okay, and what they were saying to him is the following. So let's go with the vast majority of the common interpretation out there. So either we said it's a form of imperative. It's an aorist. It's an aorist imperative, which indicates a command from the verb eido. Okay, the verb eido means to see, to look, to perceive. So in the imperative, in the second person singular, ide, means simply look, right? Look, or behold, okay, pay attention, right? So the Pharisees are trying to call out Jesus, right? Look what they're doing, right? Look what your disciples are doing. So it's like, look. And then this T in this interpretation becomes a Y, right? This is a neuter, technically, a neuter singular, which can be used many times to indicate the question why. So look, why, and then you have the verb poiusin, which is in the third person plural. You see this ending usin plural in the present tense. Okay, present tense. And so the verb is poieo. Okay, poieo is we saw it yesterday in the previous video. It means to do. Okay, to do or to make. Is the general verb that indicates any type of action. So they do. Okay. So why they do? Why do they do? Why are they doing? Okay. Why are they doing? Tois sabbasin. We saw it in Mark 2:23 with the n in front of this whole prepositional phrase. Now the n is omitted, but the meaning is exactly the same. It means on the Sabbath, right? On the Sabbath. Sabbathing indicates the Sabbath. Um, and we already mentioned the fact that it's in the plural, which is a common Hebraism that we use the plural to refer to the Sabbath day. And so sometimes in Greek it's translated as a plural, sometimes as a singular, but it just means the Sabbath day. So why are they doing it on the Sabbath? And then this whole, which we already said, it's relative pronoun in the neuter, that which or what, right? What uk is not, right? It's a negation, and then the verb, which is interesting because it comes from it's a compound verb, so you have these x that comes from the preposition ek plus the verb ami, and the verb ami is the verb to be, is the verb to be, right? When Jesus, appears to the disciples over the water, he says, "Ego eimi," right? I am. So it's the verb to be. Now the ending estin indicates there is a third person singular. Okay, third person singular, because of course that subject is this what, right? They're doing what is what? Well, this preposition in front of the verb, which, by the way, when it clashes with this epsilon, it gets softened in xe, so it's not existing but existing. Just transform the verb to be into this meaning, which is to be lawful, to be lawful. Okay, so the verb existing or exami means to be lawful, right? So if you put everything together, the question that the Pharisees were asking Jesus was, why are they doing on Sabbath what is not lawful, or why are they doing what is not lawful on the Sabbath, right? And we all know that the Pharisees were obsessed with the Sabbath. No work needed to be done on the Sabbath, and so they see the disciples plucking the ears of the grain out of the grains. That it was considered to do some work. That was considered a work, was totally unlawful, right? So the question, why are they doing what is not lawful in the Sabbath? But is this really what the Pharisees are saying? So why I think that this translation is not correct? Well, now we know that the punctuation in this particular case, a question mark here, is just a later addition. Okay, punctuation is not in the Bible. Punctuation is being added later to make the Bible more readable. But if you read the original Greek text of the New Testament, there's no punctuation, there's no commas, there's no period, there's no question marks, there's nothing. And so it needs to be reconstructed, right? Now, I'm arguing that we can translate what the Pharisees tell Jesus not in interrogative form, but in a more declarative form, which I think it's more in line with the character of the Pharisees, right? If you think about it, think about the Pharisees, they see the disciples of Jesus doing some unlawful work during a Sabbath day. Would they go there to Jesus and politely ask, "Oh, why are they doing what is unlawful?" Well, that's a possibility, but don't you think it's much more realistic to think about these enraged Pharisees like run to Jesus and declare, declaratively speaking, that they're doing something that is unlawful without asking anything. And I'm arguing that this is what actually Mark is trying to convey here. Now, in this particular case, this T is not an interrogative pronoun anymore. It's in an indefinite pronoun, always obviously in the neuter, right? That just means what, which is generally, uh, the meaning of this term most of the time. And it makes a lot of sense because, first, there is this look, right? So the Pharisees are running toward Jesus and say, look, look, look what Poyuzi, what they're doing. Look what they're doing. Okay. I think this is more common sense translation, just thinking about what might have actually occurred in real life, right? The Pharisees see this maybe from far away, and you can imagine that they run to Jesus and they want to, to him to be aware that his disciples are breaking the law, and so they're saying, "Look what they're doing on the Sabbath." Right? They're doing what is not lawful. I would put actually an exclamation mark here, not a question mark. Look what they're doing on the Sabbath. They're doing something that is not lawful. Okay? So I don't think there's any hint of a interrogative in what the Pharisees are saying here. They're not politely asking a question to Jesus. They're just condemning what his disciples are doing. And they want Jesus to be aware of that. And hopefully pushing Jesus to condemn his disciples too, which we're going to see it's not going to happen.